Welcome to week 3. And this week we're going to take a little different turn. We're going to look at family themes, and I hope that you have gathered at least 2 or 3 charts from your family. You can have parents, children, whatever, but it's interesting to take a look at some of the themes. Obviously, your charts won't have every theme, but what we're looking for are the themes that may show up in your particular family. One of the first things to look for uh, is, have you planets in the 4th, 8th, or 12th house? Now, this is essentially just looking at your chart first. And these are the water houses, the water signs, and these indicate issues that you have inherited, in particular, planets in the 12th house. This gives strong influences from your family of origin. So that's one of the first things to look for in your chart in particular, but also in the family charts. Do you have a number of charts who have a strong emphasis in the water signs? This is Baron Trump's chart. This is the son of Donald Trump. And we do have his correct birth time. And so you can take a look at his chart. Look at this 12th house. Now he's got Chiron there and Ceres, an asteroid, but he also has 4 of the major planets in that 12th house. And in addition, he's got 3 planets in Pisces conjunct to the ascendant, which is Pisces. And then he has Pluto, which is the ruler of Scorpio, another water element, conjunct to the midheaven. So I think we could say that somehow he is going to be carrying and have to work with issues that he is inheriting from his family of origin. Sometimes this will show the person, families have complexes and issues just like individuals do, and they get passed on from generation to generation until finally one person is in such pain that they say, what in the world is going on here? And that's the person that will have to start trying to do some healing in themselves. And in the process of doing some healing in themselves, they also do some healing for the family. And I think people who have these heavy water emphasis in their charts often are the ones who perhaps finally recognize that there's something going on here that they need to work on in themselves. And as I say, when you work on something in yourself, you're still a member of the family psyche at large, and so the more you work on and change your own psyche, the more you affect the family psyche. A second thing to look for, and now we're looking across charts in particular, has to do with similar, if different charts in the family have similar signs or similar houses emphasized, or the same aspect repeated over and over, perhaps with, between the same two planets. So this is something to watch for. This might be rule number 2. Rule number 1, look at water planets, water houses, water signs. And then rule number 2, looking across the charts for similar signs and similar placements. Now we're going to pick on the Kennedy family because we do have a lot of charts from the Kennedy family that do have good birth times. Now, if you look at these, this is Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. This was JFK's older brother who was killed in an airplane crash in World War II. And he was the chosen one by his father to become, I don't know if he had thought about becoming president, but he was going to really push him towards that. And look at his chart. He has, you immediately think of the Cecil B. DeMille chart. This person certainly had the possibility of being out there in the public sector. What we're looking at now is Pluto. Pluto in his chart was conjunct to the midheaven. If we go down to Robert Kennedy, of course, this was his son. Robert Kennedy had Pluto conjunct to the fourth house angle, the nadir. Edward Kennedy had Pluto conjunct to the seventh house cusp. And then this is John F. Kennedy Jr. This is JFK's son. He had Pluto conjunct to the ascendant. I got all these charts out of an article called The Curse of the Kennedys, and it has lots of charts. It's an interesting article. But as you know, Pluto rules death and rebirth, and this family certainly had its share of untimely deaths. Of course, as I said, Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. died in the plane crash in World War II. Robert Kennedy, we know, was assassinated. Edward Kennedy was not assassinated and did not die an untimely death, but he certainly was connected with death a lot in his life. He obviously lost his chance, supposedly, to become president when he drove his car off of a bridge with a young woman, Mary Jo Kopechne, in there who died. And there was a lot of turmoil around that particular instance. That he was also in a plane crash where the pilot died. And then, of course, John F. Kennedy Jr. died in a plane crash. I didn't have room for other charts, but Kathleen Kennedy, who was the sister, and she died in a plane crash. I think she was actually in World War II, but she didn't. I don't think this was in World War II. I'm not sure, but I know she died in a plane crash. And she had Pluto conjunct her ascendant, and Ted Kennedy Jr. had Pluto conjunct to his ascendant. Now, he didn't die, as far as I know, in a plane crash or anything like that, but he had his leg amputated when he was 12 years old. So a very Plutonian family, I guess we could say, to say the least. So this is just an example of looking for similar placements among the charts in your family. Now, another rule, we could say rule number 3, is to look at the nodes of the moon, the lunar nodes. They're often repeating nodes across family charts. That is, the nodes repeat themselves. Well, we're back to the Kennedy family, and here we've got Capricorn Cancer nodes being repeated. This is Joe Kennedy Sr. This is the father of all this crowd. And he had Cancer North Node, Capricorn South Node. Robert Kennedy has Cancer North Node, Capricorn South Node. And then John F. Kennedy is in this set, and he has North Node, Capricorn, South Node, Cancer. The Barrymore family is another family that we have a number of charts that are timed. And John Barrymore and Drew Barrymore, John is her grandfather. And they have the exact nodes. His node, North Node, is 5 degrees Sagittarius, South Node 5 degrees Gemini, and her North Node 5 degrees Sagittarius, South Node 5 degrees Gemini. So look for those repeating in the families. And I think when you see that kind of repeat, there is something about the nodes and their meaning as far as issues, let's say, that John Barrymore had to deal with that somehow got inherited by Drew Barrymore. So you have to look at the planets, the placements, whatever you're seeing across the charts that are similar, then that would indicate some kind of similar issue that is inherited, that is a theme, at least across those charts that you're seeing. Now, another nodal rule is to look at see if a planet in chart 1 is conjunct to a node, one of the lunar nodes in chart 2. This is one of the first things I look for if I'm doing a chart comparison, because in karmic astrology, it is considered a major point saying that these two planets, these two people have been together before, that they have had previous lives together. So now this is Donald Trump and his daughter, Ivanka. We're going to use as an example. Now, Donald Trump's nodes are, where are they? Okay, his south node is Sagittarius, 20 degrees Sagittarius. His north node is 20 degrees Gemini. So if we look at Ivanka's chart and come around to Sagittarius, she has Venus at 23 degrees Sagittarius and Neptune at 22. So her Venus and her Neptune are very close, almost exact, not exact, but close, within 2 or 3 degrees of his south node in Sagittarius. She doesn't have anything in Gemini. Now, if we look at her nodes are 25 degrees Capricorn, 25 degrees Cancer. And if we look at his chart, his Venus is 25 degrees Cancer. His Saturn is 23 degrees Cancer. So they both have Venus plus another planet, for him Saturn, for her Neptune, conjunct to the other person's nodes. It's interesting to see that Venus, because Donald Trump was on The View one afternoon, and supposedly he said, and I quote, "I've said if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I would be dating her." And he had been talking about how attractive she was and that she has a very nice figure. So I think if we look at these the Venus making this conjunction with the nodes in the other chart, you could probably say it might be a pretty good guess that they had probably been partners in previous lives. And in fact, they're business partners in this life. So there is a strong connection there and a strong partnership. And here are two soulmates, I guess we could say. They certainly had a tumultuous relationship, but they couldn't seem to stay away from each other. Elizabeth Taylor, her nodes are Pisces and Virgo, 26 degrees. And Richard Burton has Uranus at 21 degrees Pisces. Now that in itself, the Uranus conjunct to the nodes, would be a little tumultuous. Uranus is kind of be anything but don't be boring, and you can expect sudden surprises, let's say. Now, his nodes are Cancer and Capricorn, 28 degrees, Cancer and Capricorn. And let's see, where is she? Okay, she has Pluto at 20 Cancer, but she has Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius, which is only if you go backwards 2 degrees, this is 0 Aquarius. The degree before this would be 29 degrees Capricorn, and then 28 degrees Capricorn. Her Saturn is only 2 degrees off of his nodes. So, and the Pluto is within an 8-degree orb, depending on how big an orb you want to use for this. So, think about the difference here with the Trumps, where they have Venus involved, and here they have Saturn and Uranus and possibly Pluto. So you can see the intensity and the kind of tumultuousness of these two in relationship versus Donald and Ivanka. So that's another thing to look at, is looking at the planets. See if you can find a planet in one chart that makes a conjunction with the node in the other chart. It can either be the south node or the north node. Doesn't make any difference. Probably makes a difference in the interpretation, but it still indicates that there is a very strong, possibly past life relationship between the two, which means that they're probably carrying over something that they need to work on from that past life. Now, there has been some research that shows that statistically children have more chances to have the Moon, Venus, Saturn, Mars, or Jupiter on angles if their parents had them. Now, I don't know why they just looked at those planets, but anyway, evidently that was what was showing up. Now, you obviously need a correct birth time. In other words, you couldn't be using your great-grandparents' charts if you don't have the birth time for them, because you have to have correct birth time for the angles. If you have children, probably you're going to know their birth time, so you can look at that, and hopefully you know your own birth time. So you can remember the Kennedys had this across the charts, except they had Pluto conjunct to angles. And now here the Barrymores again. This is John Barrymore is the grandfather. Diana Barrymore is his daughter. And then Drew Barrymore is his granddaughter. And they all three have Neptune conjunct to the 7th house cusp. Here's his Neptune, here is her Neptune, and here is her Neptune. Now, I don't know if you know anything about this family, but they were all in the film business, which is ruled by Neptune. Neptune rules film and photography. And they all had drug and alcohol problems. He actually died from cirrhosis of the liver when he was 60 years old. Diana, her death was attributed to a drug overdose when she was 38. And Drew Barrymore, thank goodness, is still alive, and I think she's probably doing okay. But when she was young, she had a lot of issues with alcohol, smoking, drug addiction. She was in rehab. I think she spent a year or so in an institution for the mentally ill. She had a suicide attempt when she was 14. So you can certainly see this theme across these generations. And it's interesting to see that, because then you can start to pinpoint, of course, and then look at Drew's chart. She is a Pisces. There's the water, Pisces, Sun, Jupiter, and Venus in Pisces. So maybe she's going to be the one that will do some healing. Of course, Diana had the Pisces also, but she evidently wasn't able to do some healing with the family, and hopefully Drew will be able to carry some of that off. Okay. Now, this is another rule number 6, if we will, that astrologers tend to agree that these 3 main astrological structures that we have in our chart, the things that these are the three signs that people will know if they don't know anything else about their chart is the rising sign, the moon sign, and the sun sign. And that these three do tend to be very similar within family birth charts. So that's another thing to look at. In other words, for instance, in my family, my son we have the same signs on angles, he and I do. We don't have the moon sign and the sun sign. Now we have the Barrymores again, and John and Diana both have the moon in Capricorn. Moon in Capricorn, moon in Capricorn. And Diana and Drew both have the sun in Pisces. Sun in Pisces. And they also, all of them have the Leo Aquarius angles. John has it here, midheaven. Drew has it also, except hers are opposite his, Aquarius on the midheaven. And Diana has Aquarius on the ascendant. The Kennedys, again, we've got Joe Sr. has the sun and moon in Virgo, and John, JFK, has the moon in Virgo. And all of them, let's see, have the Capricorn Cancer angles. Capricorn Cancer, and Capricorn Cancer. And two of them have the Aries Libra, and that's JFK and his dad have the Aries Libra ascendant. There's been some research that also indicates that we choose friends who have similar DNA to us. And that makes sense if you think about astrology. We are attracted to people who have similar astrological placements. So this is an interesting week, and I hope you have gathered your family charts. If you have questions about them for me, you will have to send me the family charts also. But do post and let us know what you're finding in your families. Good luck.